Next up is Jade Ilker, founder of a company called Designing Futures. So Jade's business helps businesses, charities, the public sector in creative problem solving, strategy and delivering of projects. Jade's website talks about her as a social entrepreneur, with each assignment an opportunity to train, empower and employ young people. So this is someone from industry out there engaging with young people, trying to help them get the most out of what they do. So someone really who adds to the debate for us, I'm sure. So welcome and thank you.
Right, thank you for having me. Yes, my name is Jade and I'm here today to talk about some of my experiences working with young people, a bit younger than the ones Lynn was talking about. Specifically quite useful maybe for this whole subject of apprenticeships, because I think Lynn's age group is not really suitable for apprenticeships. So I'm going to talk a bit about myself and what I've been doing over the years, and about young people and how potentially we can all engage with them better and retain them and help them become the future of, well, our future and the country's future. So as it was mentioned, I've been running my own consultancy for the last 2.5 years. But before that, I did quite a lot of other stuff, which I'll tell you about in a minute, which relates to the young people bit. But for the last 2.5 years, I've been running a consultancy as a strategy consultant and setting up projects with different entities and creating work opportunities for young people, especially ages about 15, 16 to 20, 22, depending on what project I'm doing, and creating work experience opportunities and creating sometimes small paid part-time job opportunities so that young people can gain life skills, work skills and business skills and become a bit more ready for the work environment. A lot of my clients have been in the industry related to furniture, construction, interior build and kind of those kind of industries. So it's all related to what you guys are probably involved in as well in here. So we try and become a bit more creative with our projects, and we work with young people. I use the young people to kind of make the projects a bit more creative, because they're actually very dynamic. As you will know, you probably all have children who are teenagers or who have been teenagers, and you know how they've got lots of really good ideas. So what I try and teach the young people is to find that middle red spot, the nice spot where we all feel good about ourselves. We do this as well with the companies. We try and kind of find that point where, you know, as a person, as a young person or as a company, you know what you're selling. If you're selling yourself as a young person or as a person in a company or as a product in a company, you know, the world needs it. You're paid for that product or you're paid for your services. You're great at what you do and you love it, and you find that nice red middle spot. So the question is, how do we inspire youth to follow in our footsteps? There is a generation gap, if we like it or not, and even though most of us in here, I'm in my 40s and I'm sure most of us are above 40, I think, in this room. And even though we might feel that in our head we're still 18, we don't feel that different mentally, we might act a bit more maturely, but there is a generation gap and there are problems with communication. So it's quite important to understand how we're going to engage with these young people and how we're going to actually bring them into the workplace, keep them engaged, retain them, excite them and take them forward. Now, who has time for that? Most people don't. Most people are so bogged down with work, family life, social life, a bit of a social life maybe, and the demands of social media and TV and I don't know, all the other things that kind of come our way constantly. So who has time to actually then think about, oh, okay, we're going to take on some like 17, 18-year-olds and keep them excited and keep them engaged and make them smile and not grunt and stuff like that. It's quite a task these days. Of course, I mean, just to kind of mention a few things, you know, that you'll find that if you take on apprentices, they're not always easy. I don't know how many of you have worked with apprentices before, but many companies that I've worked with or engaged with have said that it's very difficult to find apprentices. Not everybody finds that, but there are quite a few companies who have this problem. finding them is difficult, and then retaining them is difficult, and actually keeping them engaged and getting them to do something and turn up on time and actually do a good job and listen to what is told, what is said, it's all quite difficult to kind of keep that up. And it's partly because of how these young people were brought up, partly because of social media, all of those reasons. And similar to probably what our parents were saying when we were teenagers. I remember my dad used to say, oh, you never concentrate, you don't focus enough, you don't do anything long enough to actually get a success from it. That was about 30 years ago, and now, I've done all right in my life. So I'm sure these young people as well, 30 years later, will be doing quite well in their lives. So it's about actually trying to show the young people that it's not about what they do. They're so brainwashed about what they need to do and what they must do, and you've got academia, I say that like that's quite a large word, but schools constantly telling them you need to get your GCSEs, you need to do A-levels, you need to go to college, you need to do this, do that, and if you do all of this, you're going to have a successful life, you're going to be happy. But that's actually, we all know that that's not actually necessarily true. And there isn't really much time for teachers, for anybody, to actually get them to understand why they are doing what they're doing, and that they should choose things that are going to have a meaning to them in their life. And that's what I've been trying to do for the past probably 18 years. And the reason I've been doing that was because when I was a teenager, I was quite naughty. My parents had some issues, so I was quite naughty myself. I was kind of playing outside. But I was lucky enough to have an extended family because I ended up playing sport. And my extended family kind of kept me on the straight and narrow and showed me that there are other ways to kind of live and not be too naughty. And about 18 years ago, I was part of setting up a charity called Street Dreams, where we decided we wanted to help young people by creating an extended family situation and helping them with that transition between age 14, 15 to kind of 22, where you go through a lot of stuff hormonally, and there's a lot of pressure on you, and there's probably issues at home majority of the time, and you're trying to handle all of that, and at the same time you're trying to set up a life for yourself without failing too much and without messing up too much. So we set up a program which we started off in Buckinghamshire and Oxfordshire with Thames Valley Police, and it was based around training young people, especially the ones who are being quite naughty, in trouble with the police or not doing well at school, and setting up life coaching programs during the day, doing after school activities after school, and running youth clubs, doing some community events, and then creating supported employment. What we found was that the young people who came to us were majority of the time unengaged, disruptive, and kind of disillusioned by the system, shall we say. And that was mainly because their parents had kind of put that into them. Why am I talking so much about young people and the type of young people I'm talking about? Is because there's a huge potential out there whom I don't think get tapped into enough. I know a lot of companies who take on apprentices, and sadly I find that a lot of the apprentices who are taken on are the ones who are from shall I say, white middle-class families who are easier to manage, which I understand why, but I think there is a huge potential of these young people who need help and who can then actually become really good workers for a lot of the companies who are considering apprentices. So working with disengaged young people and turning them around wasn't that difficult when actually we explained to them what life is about in a different way than a teacher would, and in a different way than a parent would, in a quite raw way. A lot of young people who are not doing that well academically and who could become an amazing upholsterer, who could become an amazing, chair caner or even a machine operator. These young people are out there, but they're not being shown that this is an option for them, and they're not being told why this could be a sexy option for them. So we kind of started doing that and explained to young people that, if you want to become a drug dealer, this is how you become a drug dealer, and it's going to take you about 30 years to get to the point where you've got that mansion and the big dogs and the women around you. It's not just going to happen overnight, and in that period you'll probably go to prison 9 times. So we kind of went through these kind of programs showing them the harsh reality of what they see on TV and YouTube, or at the time it was MTV and whatever, is not actually real, and it's not going to get them very far. So by doing that and being quite raw and real with them, we were able to show them that there's other ways, and we're able to excite them to actually follow a more positive path, and started turning them into youth development workers, which got a lot of success and got recognised by the Office of the Deputy Prime Minister, the Prince's Trust, and quite a lot of other places. Whilst we were doing that, we started to think. We were based in High Wycombe, and we'd done projects in Buckinghamshire, Oxfordshire, Milton Keynes, and a bit in London. We started to realise that obviously we were working with a bit of funding. We were getting we were a charity and whatnot. We thought we need to do something, and some of you might have heard, and I've worked with some of you in this room. We set up a project which was based around the furniture industry in High Wycombe, and this was about 7 years ago, and it was all about actually just before a few years before it became popular, about upcycling furniture. And we called the project Out of the Dark. And we thought, if we set up a project where they can fully learn some skills, they can actually learn to be at work, earn a bit of money, and understand what work is about. Because it's all well and good, you can give pastoral support to a young person, teach them about their life and their life choices, but then if they can't get jobs because they still haven't had that kind of training, some of the young people we were working with have never been given chores at home. So getting up early on time and getting somewhere and finishing a job, all of those things weren't taught to them. And these are the type of young people who are out there who actually have the potential to do a really good job, but just need those little bits of skills training to get them to the next level. So we thought, let's set up this project and teach them those skills and make them realise what work is about and how that makes you feel great. How when you do something and you get recognised for it, you feel good. So instead of thinking and dreaming about becoming this latest big drug dealer, they can actually get a job potentially in the furniture industry or another one, or set up their own business. So Out of the Dark was based on recycling, repurposing and revamping old furniture. Initially we were working with retro furniture, then we started working with all sorts, and Tony will know, he visited us a few times. We would get donations from people. Being in High Wycombe obviously was amazing. We had a huge warehouse, and then we started doing up this furniture, and the young people started going through a similar process to the previous project, where we'd get young people who, when you said to them, we're going to teach you how to we wouldn't say to them, we're going to teach you how to do upholstery. We wouldn't say to them, we're going to teach you how to do caning or rush seating. And we didn't say any of that, because they'd be like, what is that? And that's obviously, they say it even in a harsher way. And we'd be like, we would say to them, we're going to teach you how to make money from nothing. So they're like, really? How do you do that? Something from nothing, and making money from nothing was the exciting thing for them. So it's finding the right language to pull them in, and then get them to go through those motions of learning something, getting good at it, getting an adult like, say, Tony come in and say, you've done a really good job. And they feel really good about themselves, and they think, okay, this is good, I should keep on doing this. So we started doing this project, and it was going really well. There's some photos of what we did. That was our workshop our workshop in High Wycombe. And we worked with, I can't remember the number of young people we worked with over about 6 years, doing a variety of projects. Initially just restoring and revamping furniture for just the project itself, but then slowly starting to sell it to the outside world, and then starting to get commissioned work from people, either say in their 30s or 40s, who wanted something funky, or the older generation who might have an heirloom chair who needed reupholstering, or they might have a cane chair from the 19th century that needs doing up and stuff. So we started doing all those different kind of projects, and we had retired craftspeople coming in to teach the young people how to do some of these crafts. And we're very lucky to get lots of support from the local businesses and big companies, Benchmark, Greengate, Urquhart, lots of different companies that are really, really supportive to us. We started doing chair caning, chair rushing, upholstery, all the crafts you can think of, restoration. And we're very lucky to kind of work with companies like Heels, Timorous Beasties, Jab, Parker Knoll, Benchmark, as I mentioned, UBM, Sebastian Cox, people supporting us and sponsoring us. For me, the furniture was just a tool, but obviously we're here, and we're related to, the subject today is related to furniture. The furniture was just a tool. This could be in any industry, but it's finding something well, for us, it was finding something to get the young people engaged with and keep them engaged and teach them how to become positive role models for the next generation and set up a good life for themselves. We were very lucky to get paint sponsorship from Mylands, and we created our own paint collection. We were at the time, this is quite a few years ago now, but at the time we were very much into like the bright colours. Now I don't really like them anymore, but it's been about 4 or 5 years. But you know, you get bored of stuff, don't you? At the time I really liked them. So those were kind of the things we did. I did for about 17 years with my ex-partner, and we set up quite a successful charity. Unfortunately, we had some funding issues 2 years ago, some extreme funding issues because of a few problems. And like another charity in High Wycombe, another large youth charity, we had to close down. It was the year that another charity in London called Kids Company closed down. It was a bit of a funny year. I don't know, 3 charities closed down. And you know, we were at a really good place as well as the other 2. Not as good as Kids Company, but financially. But unfortunately, these things happen. So we closed down. But what did I learn from all those years of working with those young people is I'm still learning. It's not finished, obviously, but you know, youth is full of energy. They're dynamic. They've got determination. Even though they don't seem like they do, they are determined, and they do want things. They do want a good life for themselves. But what's important is to mine out that potential from them, and it needs to be done correctly, and it needs to be managed well. And unfortunately, I don't think the adults, including myself sometimes, we don't have the time, the patience, or the energy for this. But I strongly believe that we need to put more into this subject, because you know, what's going to happen in 20, 30 years if all these young people are going falling through the net, it's just going to get worse and worse. It's important to create a strategy. If you run a business and you're thinking of taking on apprentices, it's not just good enough to go to local school and say we want a few apprentices. It just doesn't work. I think someone was talking about earlier on, it's not always easy to get them in. And it's not easy to advertise. Someone was asking Chris, I think, how do you advertise? You need to really think about a strategy. And you might think, why do I have to sit here and think about a strategy to try and lure in some young people? They should be applying in droves. But it doesn't work like that. It really doesn't. And the sooner we face the reality and the sooner we do something about it, the more apprentices are going to come our way. So we need to kind of create a strategy to engage and retain them. And when you advertise in schools, you have to be really good at how you're doing it. And it's not just good enough to send an email or just a poster. You have to have someone go in there and sell the project, sell the idea properly. I'm talking to a couple of colleges at the moment on how this needs to be done. You know, maybe getting a young person who can come in and talk about their experience, but in a really dynamic and sexy way. It has to be sexualized in a way. And, you know, the other couple of things that I would say is that, you know, we have separate generations, and both generations are rolling their eyes at each other. So how do we find that middle ground? And how you find that middle ground is, well, I guess as the adults, we need to go down to their level because they're not ready to come up to our level. So going down to their level and engaging with them on their kind of level is what's important. What I have learned over the years for myself, which I found out, there's only 6 here actually. I've said there's 7 traits. I'm sorry, that's a mistake. So these traits that are the traits of successful entrepreneurs. Apparently, they've done some research. The 6 traits of successful entrepreneurs. These are the things that we need to teach young people, and we need to start doing this at school level, not at college level, not at university. And I don't think personally, I don't know if you guys agree, that these kind of things aren't actually focused on. But unless these start getting taught, you're not going to have the workforce that you need in the future. So maybe it's the companies that take the lead when they take on the apprentices. They have a little bit of a pastoral side to their apprenticeship, which might be 2 hours a week, but that pastoral care on the side of 2 hours a week will make a huge difference. And what do I mean by pastoral care? I mean, I don't know how it could be set up in each particular company, but when I do training and when I support colleges or schools with training, I come in and do the pastoral care, and that's like making sure that the person is life coached, making sure the young person is developing themselves and understanding what real life is about. And that doesn't just happen by just saying, sit there and work that machine for 8 hours. You know, you need to speak to them, you need to engage with them. These are young people who are constantly getting engagement through social media. You have to be determined. If you're up for working with young people, you really have to be determined. You have to be even more determined than them and not give up. And this is like the reality as well. It can be very frustrating working with these 18, 20-year-olds. They have lots of problems, and you know, we don't have patience, but we need to be determined and help them out. Some of the projects I've set up since the charity closed down, I couldn't just give up on working with young people. I decided I need to kind of earn a bit of money, so I decided, okay, I'm going to be a consultant and do some commercial work, helping companies with their, you know, PR, marketing and sales and stuff. But then I started and using young people in the meantime. But then I started setting up side projects. So I did a project with Tent London and then Clerkenwell Design Week. I'm doing a project with D&AD, the second year running, and I've helped set up a youth project in Turkey because I'm half Turkish myself. So these projects have all been based around creating, this was Clerkenwell last year, we had a group of about, I think, 13 young people who we put them through some training before Clerkenwell Design Week, I think it was 2 weeks before, and it was around training on how to be in the workplace, presentation skills, how you speak, what kind of vision do you have for your future kind of thing. And then we went around some of the showrooms who were going to be our partners and sponsors, so they got to see what Clerkenwell was all about. And none of these young people had ever been to Clerkenwell. They didn't even know it existed. You know, I think 13 out of the 13, probably 8, 9 of them were from High Wycombe, and if they come to London, they go to Niketown in Oxford Circus, and that's all they know, you know. So what is Clerkenwell to them? They don't understand it. But they loved it, and this is us visiting Bultaup, Isomi and Morgan Furniture, and getting to understand each business and what they do. And young people, even though some of these young people were actually quite naughty young people 2 years prior to that, they loved it because they were being taken seriously. They were actually understanding, this is how you make money, this is how these people started from nothing and they've got to this stage and stuff like that. And it, you know, when you start explaining things like that to them, they can see that maybe they can do that at one point. So then through Clerkenwell Design Week, we created an opportunity for each one of them to be placed in a different business. And Milliken was one of them, and we had Bultaup, we had Isomi, we had Morgan, we had, I think, about 12 companies who supported us, and they all did work experience throughout that week, helping them set up, run the show, and then pull it down. And everybody enjoyed it. Now, that was a bit too quick, but I think someone was talking about work experience earlier on. I think work experience projects are really great. Maybe before you take on apprentices, it's about setting up a work experience environment and giving trials to groups of young people from local schools. And there's lots of different projects and ideas you could do, mini projects, to make sure your apprenticeship scheme works much more successfully. And the government's doing a big push. They keep on doing big pushes, in my opinion. You know, I've been in this youth industry for 18, nearly 20 years, and there's always some push for something related to youth. But actually on the ground, I'm sure, you know, it might be wrong for me to say this here, but on the ground, I don't think it happens enough, and we need to do more to make it happen. If the government's happy to kind of spend this money, let's use the money and let's make it happen. And to make it happen, let's not just say, okay, oh, here's an apprenticeship form, send it to a school. Let's think a bit more creatively and set up mini projects that are going to make a success for the apprenticeship scheme. So, I think it's my last slide. I just want to remind you guys of when you were 19. This is me when I was 19. It's a dire photograph. I'm sure you'll all agree that I look a bit better now. I've got through those years, just about, and come through them. So I showed this picture to some young people. I did a session on Tuesday with some 13-year-old girls, and they couldn't believe that was me. They said, that's a boy. I said, well, it does look like a boy, but that was me, and I didn't look very happy. But, you know, I was 19 and all of that stuff was around me. I'm sure I have most of that stuff around me now still, but I've learned how to handle it better. But at that age, I'm sure you'll all remember, or try and remember if you can't, how you felt when you were 19 and what you were dealing with, and how it might have not been that easy to quieten your mind. So I learnt over the years that, you know, I need to have self-belief, I need to increase my self-esteem, and I need to have confidence if I'm going to do something. I was very lucky to grow up in Istanbul and in England. I was very lucky to have parents who pushed me and threw me out there and got me to do things. But the majority of young people these days, even the ones who go to college and university, are mollycoddled. They're not allowed to do so many things. They're not allowed to use a cordless drill in college, or sorry, not even college, in school. You know, they're driven everywhere. You know, all of this stuff. And obviously, I think, I had a lot of university students, workers, come and do volunteering for me when we were running the charities, and I still have them come to me and do work experience. I mean, I'm just like gobsmacked at how skillless they are. And these people have gone to grammar school in Buckinghamshire, the best grammar schools in the country, and they've gone to university, and they just still don't have a clue. And I just want to give them a slap sometimes. But, but the point is, the point is, we need to do something. And we're all in this room. We're all guilty. It's because of us that that's happened. You know, it's not their fault really. So we all need to do something about it, and that means we need to give them some pastoral care. Even if we can't do it at home with our own kids. My daughter's 11 and I'm finding it really hard to get through to her at the moment. She doesn't want to listen to me. So even if we can't do it with our own kids, let's try and do it at work with people who are coming in, and spread the love and create an extended family across the country. I think that's kind of it. That's just a bit about me, but you can see me on my website as well. So yeah, thank you for your time. I might have gone over a bit, but
oh, good.
Thank you.